Greetings, Facebook. Good evening, everybody. Do you know what? I wasn't going to do a live stream tonight. I was going to get into bed, but I read something and I just thought, do you know what? I would like to share it. I just had a feeling that I just needed to share it. Somebody needs to hear it. So, greetings, everybody. My name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach Black women how to heal from the impact of racism with sacred self-love and racial sobriety. So racial sobriety, what is racial sobriety? Racial sobriety is your ability to understand the impact of racism on your life, on your being, on your relationships, and then doing the internal work to rid yourself of all of that so that you can stand in the power that you are, in the greatness that you are. So, hello, thanks for joining. So, really excited about today's topic. Today's topic is all about detaching with love. But before I get into that, just a really quick bit of housekeeping and some requests. So, the first thing is that this reading, this thing that I'm going to go through today is inspired by my Living in Love program, which is, the doors are open now, and the first session actually happens next Wednesday. So the Living in Love program is a 12-month monthly online subscription program, and we're going to be talking about all different aspects of love. It's just occurred to me that I don't have the book. Oh no, here it is. We're going to be using this book to anchor the topic of conversation. It's Bell Hooks' book, All About Love, and we're going to be doing it chapter by chapter over the next 12 months, and I'm really excited about it because you're going to get an opportunity to explore all different aspects of love within yourself, and also to, decide what you want, define love in all of its glory, and then do the work to kind of manifest it and then celebrate it. So we're going to be talking about all different aspects of love: romantic love, cultural love, inner child love, love as it relates to work, just beauty. There's just so many different ways that we're going to celebrate love, and you'll have the opportunity to have check-in sessions. We're going to be doing masterclasses. Maybe I might throw a few challenges in there, here and there as well. But it's just going to be a really nice experience. And the ladies that were in the last program actually, made the choice to pick that book because we did another Bell Hooks book before, and they really enjoyed it. So we decided to do another one. So that is a bit of housekeeping that I've got today. So the only other thing that I wanted to say is that I have 3 requests, which I always ask in my broadcast. Number 1, if there's anything that you don't understand that I'm talking about, then obviously you can drop a note in the comments. If you obviously understand that this is a public platform, so if you're not comfortable writing about your questions or whatever in the comments, then you can either drop me a direct message or you can send me an email, info@guideofgreatness.com. Hi, thanks for joining. And the other thing is, if you know somebody that needs to detach with love from somebody, from difficult people, from difficult family members or whatever it is, then share it with them, tag them. And the other thing that I need to share, the third thing, is just to remember that these sessions are for information purposes only, and they are not a substitute for therapy. Yes, I'm a student psychotherapist, I'm a mum and entrepreneur and all of that kind of stuff. But you do need to see a licensed mental health professional if you've got any deeper issues that need to be looked at. So that's all the housekeeping and all of the terms and all the legal stuff out of the way. So let's crack on with the topic. So, as I said, I wasn't going to do a live stream this evening, but I love this book. This is one of my favourite morning meditation books, The Language of Letting Go, Melody Beat. It's all about codependency, difficult relationships and all of that. And she's got another one as well that I really like. I'll have to create a little PDF so that you can have a copy of all of the morning meditation books that I use. I do use quite a few, but this one is one of my favourites. So I'm actually reading from today's one, December the 5th. So I'll read bits of it, and then obviously I will share what comes up because I just found it really good. So December 5th, and it's called Difficult People. Okay, so she says, few things can make us feel crazier than expecting something from someone who has nothing to give. Few things can frustrate us more than trying to make a person someone he or she isn't. We feel crazy when we try to pretend that that person is someone he or she is not. We may have spent years negotiating with reality concerning particular people from our past and our present. We may have spent years trying to get someone to love us in a certain way when that person cannot or will not. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a minute because that's the first paragraph. And just in reading that, it brought up so much stuff, especially around the holiday season. You know, for those of us that have had difficult families and just difficult relationships with our families as children and stuff like that, even as adults, you know, it can be really hard for us because we so desperately want to be in relationship with our family members. We so desperately want to feel seen. We want to feel loved. We want to feel heard. That sometimes, you know, we keep going back and putting ourselves in these situations with family members that are unsafe. And we know, you know, there's that saying that Dr. Maya Angelou says, you know, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And people will always tell you, oh, you know, if somebody's treating you badly, then you need to leave that relationship or you need to put in boundaries and all the rest of it. But I noticed that a lot of times people will say that in general about difficult people, but then when it comes to family members where the relationships are strained or have been abusive or whatever, people always switch and go, oh no, you can't do that, it's your parents, or it's this person or that person, you can't do that, it's your sister. And people have always got a lot to say about telling you that you should stay in that relationship. Now, I'm a firm believer that if that person is hurt, if you find yourself constantly in a situation where this person is harming you, doesn't respect your boundaries, then it's important for you to have some really tough conversations, especially if it's impacting your well-being. You know, if it's impacting your well-being, then you have a right to have some really honest conversations about what feels safe. And maybe this is something that you need to get support around. Maybe you do need to, you know, to work with a therapist around this stuff. Because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're going to try and do it on your own. You need a support network. You really do need a support network to be able to work through this stuff if you're having trouble. And this time of year is, you know, it's very difficult because you're seeing all the adverts and stuff on TV, people, you know, showing all these happy families around the Christmas table eating turkey and all this kind of stuff. And it can be difficult to not get triggered by it if you don't have that sort of relationship with your family. And it can bring up a lot of painful feelings. It can trigger grief. It can trigger anger. It can trigger so many different things, especially if, you know, you're in a situation where, you know, maybe you haven't, you know, maybe you are still in contact with your family, but it's just painful, you know, and you're sort of questioning, well, what should I do and how should I do this, you know. And if you really, really want to have, you know, a good relationship with yourself around this stuff, then maybe it is time for you to have those tough conversations with yourself about how you can do this in a safe way. It doesn't mean that you have to be mean to your family or you have to cuss out anybody or anything like that. It might just mean that you just limit your amount of time, limit the amount of time that you spend with these people. It might be that you want to hang out with some family members but not others, you know. And it might be that you decide to just spend a couple of hours as opposed to spending the whole afternoon. You know, it's about you really being honest with yourself and share what feels safe and give yourself permission to do that. And don't be guilt tripped. Don't be guilt tripped into, you know, being more involved than you really, really want to be. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, this group that I've put together has been really supportive of the ladies that have decided to be part of it. Because part of it is they can talk about these difficult conversations without feeling judged, without feeling that people are going to, you know, shame them for saying, oh, well, you know, you can't not do that because that's your family member or what. Because people say that all the time. But unless you're that person that's going through that difficulty, you need to close your mouth. You need to keep quiet, because if that's not your experience, then you don't have the right to judge anybody else that's going through that. And it's difficult. It can be difficult for people to go through those situations. And the last thing and it's difficult enough as it is without having more judgment from people that just don't understand it. So, you know, an important thing to remember is when you are making these decisions is to have those decisions with somebody who you think is going to hear you and not try and minimize your feelings or try and coerce you into going back into that situation when you know it's going to, you're going to need another, few weeks after Christmas to kind of get over it, to be able to deal with it, to be able to deal with the fallout. I mean, obviously, if you may be worried that if you do decide not to spend as much time, that there's going to be fallout in that respect, which it may well be, but then you have to decide which one is going to be better for you. Just dealing with the fallout because you've made a decision not to, but actually having more of your mental health, having your well-being more intact, or go and do what's expected of you, and then, just making yourself vulnerable in a way that just feels unsafe, so, we can put ourselves in these situations where, we try to protect ourselves by not being realistic, or just thinking that, oh, well, I'm just going to forgive that person and go into that space, when you haven't really given yourself to process what you need to process before going back into that thing. It can be very difficult and it can be unsafe for you to jump from, having something happen within your family and then going straight to forgiveness without actually doing the processing in between. It's important to have that processing, the looking at the emotions, and processing those emotions and dealing with speaking out whatever happened, so that you can go back into that situation if it feels safe, with stronger boundaries and with a stronger sense of confidence and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's important that that we're honest with ourselves about all that crazy making stuff that does happen, that can happen around Christmas time, around the holiday period, and not allow yourself to be manipulated and thinking that it's going to be any different. If your previous Christmases, a really good thing to think about is, what have your previous Christmases been like with the people that are asking you to come back and do it again? And if the last few Christmases have felt unsafe, why would this one be any different? Why would this be any different? And there are so many other things that you can do. You can spend Christmas with friends. You can spend Christmas helping homeless people. There are so many other things that you can do. You don't have to spend your holiday time with people that are going to disrespect you because there's an expectation that you feel that you should feel some sort of fantasy around the holidays. You don't have to if you don't want to. And just know that you have permission to make different choice. Okay, so I'll move on to the next bit. So the second paragraph is about, it says, it's time to let go. It is time to let him or her go. That doesn't mean that we can't love that person anymore. It means that we will feel the immense relief that comes when we stop denying reality and begin accepting. We release that person to be who he or she actually is. We stop trying to make that person be someone he or she is not. We deal with our feelings and walk away from the destructive system. That's what I was saying earlier. It's about really accepting the other person's limitations. It might be that, that you're more self-aware. In my therapy class, because I've gone back to college to finish my psychotherapy training, and one of the things that kept coming up in the class today when we were all doing our check-ins was the whole thing around, the more self-awareness that they were getting around who they are and what their needs were and all of that kind of stuff, the more difficult it was to be around certain people that weren't self-aware. It's kind of like they're waking up to how shut down a lot of the people around them were. And so they started making different choices about, what they were willing to do and what they were not willing to do, which didn't always, go down well with family members or whatever, or their partners, when they were used to them behaving a certain way or them getting their own way with certain things. But that's what comes with self-awareness. And it's probably, for me, probably one of the most painful things that I had to accept about doing this journey of growth, this journey of healing, is that not everybody can do this work. Not everybody wants to do this work. Some people just want to stay where they are. Some people are not ready to do this work. Some people don't want to do it. So what happens in that situation is that you have to leave those people where they are. You have to accept them for who they are. And it doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody else or you're better than them. It just means that you have to respect that everybody's got their own path and everybody's got their own journey that they need to go through. And part of that means that in taking care of yourself, you have to also let the other people have their own journey. And all you can do is be an example. You can't pressure them or try and control them or try and make them be something that they're not. Some people just don't have the capacity to do it, or they don't want to do it. You know, maybe they've got too much of their own stuff that they don't want to work through, and that's their choice. But what's important in that situation is, if you find yourself in a situation where you're with someone, or you're in a family where you're doing the work and you can see certain patterns that are dysfunctional, that are destructive or whatever, or disrespect that's going on in the family, you have to just manage your response to that and not focus on trying to change them, because you can't change other people. You have to focus on how you react to them and what feels safe. What is your capacity around your family members? What is your capacity around those, your extended family that, that may say mean things? This is something else that I've seen. There's a lot of certain Facebook groups that I'm in. I've seen, women getting upset because they went to see family members, to sort of planning holidays or whatever, visiting them. And, there's always their first family members that keep saying things about their weight and, you're this or you're that, or commenting on their clothes just inappropriately and all of that kind of stuff. So, when you've got firmer internal boundaries, when you feel, or if you're feeling vulnerable and you don't want to be putting up with that, it's okay to make the decision not to actually put yourself in that situation. You have permission to take care of yourself. Those people, and 9 times out of 10, those people have always been like that. They ain't going to change. They don't want to change. They think a lot of times, there are a lot of elders in the community that often think that because they're older than you, that they have the right to say and do these things because you're younger. But you don't have to you don't have to put up with it. Just because they're older than you, it doesn't mean that they have the right to disrespect you. And it doesn't mean that you have to be disrespectful back. It just means that you have to be clear about what you will and will not put up with. And if it means that you remove yourself from those situations so that you feel safe, then that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. So, it's important to think about this thing from the position of, what am I in control of? And the only thing that you can control is your response to people. That's the only thing that you control. You can't control other people. So it really is about, you learning how to deal with your feelings and let those people just have their own journey or whatever they're going through. So I'll just continue reading. So then it says, we learn to love and care differently in a way that takes reality into account. When we enter into a relationship with that person on new terms, taking ourselves and our needs into account. If a person is addicted to alcohol, other drugs, misery, or other people, we let go of his or her addiction. We take our hands off it. We give his or her life back. Oh, what's going on? My phone's going off. Just excuse me a minute. I've got my alarms going off. Okay, apologies for that. So we take our hands off it. We give his or her life back. And we, in the process, are given our life and freedom in return. We stop letting what we are not getting from that person control us. Okay, I'm going to read that again. We stop letting what we are not getting from that person control us. We take responsibility for our life. We go ahead with the process of loving and taking care of ourselves. We decide how we want to interact with that person, taking reality and our own best interest into account. We get angry, we feel hurt, but we land in a place of forgiveness. So that doesn't mean necessarily that we have to get angry with that person or we have to cuss them or anything like that. That's not what this is about. This is about allowing yourself to feel the grief, the anger, the frustration, whatever it is around the fact that the acceptance around you can't change that person and you can't change the situation. You have no control in that sense. You can only control how you react. And this is what I was saying before about just allowing, when you give that person their power back, you let that person deal with their own self, and you take your power back by detaching with love. You're empowering yourself, because really you start to focus on the impact of that person's behavior, as opposed to you pointing fingers and blaming and name calling and doing all of that stuff and expecting that person to change because you're in judgment of them. You're frustrated and you want them to change, so your finger is always pointing at them. And when you detach with love, detaching with love means having an acceptance of where that person is, not saying that you have to put up with it or deal with any of their inappropriate behavior or anything like that, because you don't. It means that you accept where they are, but you just focus on where your limits are with that person. That's what detaching with love means. You accept the person for who they are, for where they are. You can even be compassionate to where they are. But in the process of that acceptance and letting go of where that person is, you give yourself permission to have your feelings around the situation, not necessarily with that person, because that person may not be able to hear you or see you in that regard. And it might actually just cause you more distress if you're reacting to that person in a way that's, you're being emotional, whatever, in front of that person. But if they can't hear you or see you, they don't understand they're not accepting their behavior as inappropriate, then that's just going to cause more upset. So you find a safe space, a group, a therapist, a minister, a friend, a colleague, a mentor, whoever it is. You find a space to be able to discuss the difficulties around letting that person go, the difficulties around acceptance of that person. This is a really deeper aspect of emotional maturity and self-love, being able to do that. And that's why the space in the Living in Love program that I'm going to this open is an important part of the process, because people will have an opportunity, particularly obviously in December, the December sessions, the live sessions that we're going to be doing, the check-in sessions that we're going to be doing, to be able to talk about this stuff, because a lot of the women that do work with me tend to have difficult relationships with their families, and this is going to be probably a challenging time for a lot of them. So, there will be a space for them to be able to share a lot of that stuff. If you're interested in joining us for the Living in Love program, you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So the last bit of this reading is about, so she says, we get angry, we feel hurt, but we land in a place of forgiveness. We set him or her free, and we become set free from bondage. This is the heart of detaching with love. Okay, this is the heart of detaching in love. Today, I will work at detaching in love from troublesome people in my life. I will strive to accept reality in my relationships. I will give myself permission to take care of myself in my relationships, with emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual freedom for both people as my goal. So in taking back your power, in taking responsibility for yourself, you actually set both of you free. You set both of you free. You set the person that you find challenging, and you set yourself free to be empowered and you focus on the thing that you can change, which is your feelings, your emotions, your process. So that's how you detach with love. It's not an easy one. It's easier said than done, especially around this time of year. But if you're willing, and it's something that that you need to do for your own well-being, then it's important that you take those steps and get the support you need. If you'd like to talk a bit more about this topic, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to ask, then you can drop a note in the comments, or you can send me a direct message, or you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com if you don't feel comfortable to drop any of your comments or whatever in the comments, on the live page. So that's it for this evening. I hope that your ability to detach with love is something that you will be able to reach out and get support, because it's not easy doing this stuff on your own. It's hard, but there is support out there. Okay, so if you would like to get more support, obviously there's the Living in Love program, which is now live, and you can do it. You can join by clicking the link in the bio. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. And for those of you that are watching on the replay or came in late, that want to know the book that I was reading, it's this one. It's called The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beattie. Okay, and that was today's it was December 5th that I read, and it was called Difficult People. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your evening however you choose to spend it, and I look forward to seeing you soon. If you know somebody if you enjoyed today's broadcast and you know somebody who might be interested, or that you'd find this broadcast useful, that's struggling with detaching with love from difficult family members or friends or whatever it is, then share it with them, tag them. Okay, take care, and I will see you next time. Take care, bye bye.